All right, Bryan Hayes joins me now, the host of Overdrive. And Bryan, Leafs were down 3-1, heading back to Boston. They are without the league's top goal scorer in Austin Matthews. The odds very much stacked against the Toronto Maple Leafs, and yet they rise to the occasion. So the question is, how were they able to pull off a win in Game 5?
Well, I think first and foremost, we heard Sheldon Keefe, what he said in the postgame. They didn't feel bad for themselves, Jen. They knew that this was another opportunity at redemption tonight. But in reality, they played a lot like they did in Game 2 and in Game 3. Really, they didn't score many goals. They scored 2, 1 in regulation. Scoring goals has still been plaguing them, but they're still alive. They can redeem themselves in the future. The power play wasn't great again tonight, but they did kill penalties tonight. They battled. They started on time. I know those are cliches, but in reality, when you watch what you watched on Saturday night, Game 4, that was the complete opposite. They came out flying. 12-2 of the shots in the first period, yet it was 1-1. Again, that was an opportunity for them to feel defeated, right? Woe is me. We played great. It's only 1-1. How are we going to get out of here with a win? They didn't do that. I thought they were the better team tonight. Full credit to them, because considering the way they played after Game 4, the way the fan base was really feeling about them going into this game, they played really well. They deserve the win tonight.
You could argue that Toronto had the better goaltender in this one, and Sheldon Keefe making the goalie change inserts Joseph Woll into this game. Woll played great, 27 saves, allows just a single goal. Was that a jolt, or do you think that Woll provided a jolt for the Leafs tonight?
Absolutely. That was probably the biggest difference, quite frankly, in them winning tonight compared to previous games in the series. I said this coming into the game tonight. If they're going to get through this series, they're going to have to ride Joseph Woll and a Woll miracle, basically. And I think what Sheldon Keefe did tonight was he took a page out of Paul Maurice's book from a year ago. Maurice went to Bobrovsky, basically throwing something at the wall, you know what, saying, why not? Let's see what happens here and see if this kid can get hot. Woll was hot tonight. He was outstanding. He made a massive, massive save to start overtime. And the reality of this sport, as you know, is there's one position that can steal games. There's one position that can quite literally determine what's going to happen any given game, any given series, any given season. It's goaltending. Samsonov, he hasn't been bad, but he hasn't been great. Joseph Woll was great tonight. It was a huge jolt for the Maple Leafs.
So interesting, too, to think going into the next game what Boston's going to do if they go back to Swayman or if they switch things and go back to Allmark. The Leafs still trailing in this series, but they do come home with a chance to even things up at home. Boston now has to get on a plane and fly to Toronto and play a hockey game that they didn't want to have to play. What would the mindset be of both of the teams now as this series switches back to Toronto?
I think for the Maple Leafs, it's 3 different things. I think first and foremost, you're playing psychological games with yourself at this point. If a series is going to go 6 games, someone has to be losing 3-2. Doesn't matter how you got here. It doesn't matter how you played Game 1, Game 4. Someone has to be down 3-2. Okay, it's you, the Maple Leafs, and you're heading back to Toronto. Number 2, what we just talked about. Joseph Woll, I think, is giving this team a lot of confidence. They should have confidence. He played great in Boston tonight. He played really well last year in the playoffs when he went in against Florida. So you have Woll here. It's a different feel, a bit of a different vibe. And I think, thirdly, and this probably should be the most important thought for the Maple Leafs, tonight, you redeemed yourself based on the way you played in Game 4, but really Game 6 is where they're going to be able to do that, Jen, because they have lost 6 straight games at home in the playoffs. 6 straight. They should be embarrassed by that statistic. So you won on the road tonight. They're 2-1 in Boston in this series. You want to really get fans back on your side. You really want to make a point. You have a chance to do that Thursday night by winning in your home building. That's big for the Leafs. That's what they should be thinking. Boston, it's deja vu. Right? Last year, Game 5 in the Boston Garden, TD Garden. Florida wins in overtime. They got to go down to Florida Game 6. They lose Game 6. We know what happened in Game 7. They're going to try to push those thoughts aside. You know they're in there when they're flying up to Toronto. This is deja vu. They better make sure they close on Thursday night, because if they don't, it's going to get really loud and a lot of pressure will be on the Bruins.
Well, the Leafs forcing a Game 6, and I keep in mind the 3 prior series between Toronto and Boston all went 7 games, and they were all won by the Boston Bruins.